My name is Anthony Fayard Nicholas. I was born March 28th, 1945 in Los Angeles, California, and I'm 78 years old.
Thank you. So if we could begin by your describing your family as far back as you'd like to go, on both sides, maternal and paternal.
Okay. Well, on my father's side, my father, Fayard Nicholas, was born in 1914 in Alabama. My grandparents were Ulysses Nicholas and Viola Nicholas. Wonderful grandparents. They started off in show business at a very young age.
Where were they? Where did they live?
Oh, in Alabama.
So they were in Alabama.
They were in Alabama. However, they were in vaudeville, and so they traveled around the country, especially in the South. My Uncle Harold, was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in 1921. So they were in the South, basically, where they entertained. They formed a band called the Collegians because of the fact that my grandparents were both college graduates, and so they formed this band, and they later moved on to Philadelphia. And
college graduates, which college?
well, that's the thing.
Okay.
That's the thing that we're doing the research on, and trying to find out exactly what school they went to.
Okay.
But it's not listed in any of the documentation or anything like that.
So they moved to Philadelphia?
They moved to Philadelphia, and while they were there, they performed in all the venues in all of Philadelphia, and they became quite famous. The Nicholas brothers became quite famous.
And what was their form of talent?
Oh, they were the greatest tap dancers that ever lived.
Okay.
There's no question about
Yes.
it. And so while they were there in Philadelphia, they performed in all the venues there. And then what happened was they got discovered by the head of the Cotton Club in New York City, Harlem, New York City. And so they went to New York, and they performed at the famous Cotton Club. And while they were there at the Cotton Club, what was amazing is that all the stars and all the very well-known African Americans at that time, they couldn't go to the Cotton Club because of this discrimination. But what happened was all the white entertainers and the white business people there, they just loved the Nicholas brothers. And so what happened was the Nicholas brothers, after they would perform, because they were so young, they were able to go out into the audience and meet the different celebrities because they just loved them, and they gave them all the accolades in the world. And so they were there at the Cotton Club and getting all those accolades. But what was such a shame is that all the influential black people at that time that lived in New York, they weren't able to go to the Cotton Club. I think the only one that was able to get in, and because who he was Joe Louis, who was then the heavyweight champion of the world, of course. And while they were there at the Cotton Club, Hollywood called, and they came to Hollywood, and they made their first big motion picture there. It was a film called Kid Millions with Eddie Cantor and George Murphy and Ethel Merman. And they were in this film called Kid Millions, and their fame skyrocketed as a result of this film.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you for the name again of the film.
The name of it was Kid Millions. And
Kid Millions?
Kid Millions.
Interesting.
Millions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And so they were in this film, Kid Millions, Kid Millions, and so from that film they went back to the Cotton Club, and later they went to Europe with a group called the Blackbirds, and they performed in all of Europe during that time as youngsters. There's no question about it. And their popularity grew and grew and grew. And eventually they were able to, come back to the States, and they signed a contract with 20th Century Fox to do 6 films. And in total, they made over 55 motion pictures in Hollywood and in Europe and South America. And so they were just phenomenal
Amazing.
dancers, and there's no question about it. The greats at that time, Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, marveled at the Nicholas Brothers and what they were able to do in their performances. And so as a result of that, both Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire both said that the Nicholas Brothers were the greatest dancers they'd ever seen. And there's no question about how popular they were, and what great dancers they were. And the great thing about the Nicholas Brothers is that they used their whole body when they performed. They used their hands and arms and all the different routines that they had and all the steps. You could see that it looked as though they were trained by a ballet master. But the truth is, the Nicholas Brothers never had a dance lesson in their lives. My father used to go to the vaudeville shows with my grandparents, and he would look at the tap dancers, and he would mimic them, and he taught himself how to dance.
Could you say a little bit about the vaudeville? What?
Well, the vaudeville was basically a show that was put on that consisted of not only dancers but singers and comedians and other performers, and it was a form of show business and entertainment that travels, like I said, throughout the South and throughout the North. And so that form of entertainment was called vaudeville. And so...
Who were the entertainers?
Oh, well, there's my godfather, Bill Bojangles Robinson.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he was the big headliner there.
That was your godfather?
That was my godfather. And what happened was other entertainers who came up then, of course, Duke Ellington and the other Ethel Waters and the other renowned entertainers at that time, they performed in vaudeville. And so, like I said, my grandparents performed in vaudeville, and my father just loved the entertainers, especially the dancers, and he would go to the shows with my grandparents, and he would pick up, as I said, he would pick up from the dancers, and he taught himself how to dance, which was phenomenal. I mentioned these other films that the Nicholas Brothers were in. Well, all the choreography in all those films, all the dances and everything, my father did all the choreography. Now, there would be other choreographers, of course, that would get credit, but it was my father that did all the choreography and all those dances. There was a famous play in New York at that time called Babes in Arms. The great dance master Balanchine did the choreography for Babes in Arms. but the Nicholas brothers did their own choreography. All the routines and all the dances you see the Nicholas brothers perform in Babes in Arms. My father did all the choreography, and that showed the how versatile they were and how talented they were, and they didn't get the credit. In all, they didn't get the credit in the Babes in Arms and other productions that they performed in, and they didn't get the credit in the films. But that's but that's the sign of the times, and that was what black entertainers that had to go through, and that's what they were subjected to at that time, the discrimination and the racism that not only on Broadway, but of course and definitely in Hollywood. I'll share this with you that if you see a Nicholas Brothers film, you'll see that they never have any dialogue with the main stars in any of the films. They usually have to show the Nicholas Brothers performing in a nightclub or at another event, and the thing is, they would only come out for at the most 5 minutes to do their performance, and the reason why the films were made like that, because when they sent the films to the South, that the studios were able to cut out that particular portion because they knew that they didn't want to show the white audiences these two debonair, handsome, and well-dressed black men dancing in a film, and so what happened was they would cut their particular portion out.
Was that restricted to the South?
That was just to the South.
Just the South.
Just the South.
Not the North. Okay.
Not the North. Oh no. But I'll tell you something. There's one film that they did called Down Argentine Way. Down Argentine Way was a film with Betty Grable and Donna Michi in it. And so what happened was, in the film, Down Argentine Way, the head of 20th Century Fox, Darryl F. Zanuck, at that time, hedged his bet. He said, you know what? We're going to show this film in its entirety in the South and see what we get. So what happened was, the theaters in the South at that time were completely segregated. The black audience would have to sit in the balcony, and of course the white audience would have to sit in the lower ground. And so what happened was, they showed the film Down Argentine Way in the South. And one of the films, one of the venues that they showed Down Argentine Way for the first time, the audience got so excited after seeing the performance, they started cheering and clapping their hands and stomping their feet. Well, the projectionists had to stop the film, rewind it, and show it again, because the audience was so excited at seeing the film that that was the one film that it was one of the first films where they showed a performance by these great black entertainers that they showed. And so my father and uncle did something that was extraordinary.
Well, it was history making.
Right, it was history making. There's no question about it. And so film changed ever since that time. There's no question about it.
Wonderful. So this is we're talking about what time frame?
Well, we're talking about in the early 1940s.
40s. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's like, as I said, the contract that the Nicholas brothers signed with 20th Century Fox was for 6 films, and they went throughout the 40s, the early 40s, and into the late 40s, in all their films. One of those films, of course, 20th Century Fox, was Stormy Weather. Now, Stormy Weather was such an exciting film That film had, at that time, had all the famous black entertainers during that time. Especially they had Cab Calloway and his orchestra that was on the film. Bill Bojangles Robinson was in it, and Lena Horne, and Fats Waller. You know, the list goes on and on. But what happened was there was a song that Cab Calloway performed in that film called "Jumpin' Jive," and the Nicholas Brothers with historical performance in that film, and those folks that have seen Stormy Weather and had a chance to see that particular performance, "Jumpin' Jive," Fred Astaire said it's the greatest dance routine ever put on film. And the great thing about this film, they did it in one take. Now, in that film, there were some exceptional things that the Nicholas Brothers did in that film. And in particular, they did the splits coming down a staircase. And that particular scene, it was just truly phenomenal. I mean, anybody who had a chance to see that film for the first time, when they saw the Nicholas Brothers perform, doing those, coming down that staircase, first my father would jump down the stairs and to do it into a split, and then my uncle would jump over his head, and they go on and on till they come down the staircase, and it's breathtaking. I tell you, I've seen that film at least 100 times, and every time I see it, I just marvel. I said, "Oh my God, how did he do that?" I tell you a story. Oftentimes I've been asked to come and speak at different venues, and to talk about the Nicholas Brothers. And I remember I was in Philadelphia. I was at an event there, a tap festival in Philadelphia, and so I showed the film Stormy Weather, and so one of the students there raised their hand and said, "Mr. Nicholas, yes, we don't think you've been truthful with us." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you said you're one of the sons of Fayard Nicholas and the Nicholas Brothers." And I said, "Well, I am." And so so the student said, "Well, after seeing that film and seeing the Nicholas Brothers do those splits, we don't believe the Nicholas they could have any children." So I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I'm going to have to start bringing my birth certificate."
That's right.
To these events to show them that I am the son. But that was hilarious. But I tell you, it is truly amazing. And I tell you, after doing all those splits and all the things that they did in those films, all the acrobatics, eventually it caught up to my father. As he grew older, had to have both his hips replaced, and it's because of those splits and all the things that they did. But but it's truly phenomenal to see them do all the acrobatics and all their performances. It really is, no question about it.
So did he retire in LA?
Yes, but you call that retiring?
Yeah.
He still performed. He still performed. As a matter of fact, he was 91, and he gave a performance in October of 2005, and
At 91.
at 91, and he what happened was he had a stroke later, and he passed away in 2006. So you see, he
Yeah.
is a constant entertainer, and so what happened, he like I said, up until a few months before he passed away, he was in a performance and performed, but he performed everywhere. My father loved people. He loved people, and so what happened was all the shows. People would come up to him and ask him for his autograph. He would stay there for hours, and he'd give autographs. People would ask him questions, and they wanted to know things. He would stay there because he just loved people. He loved being around people. I tell you, I tell you, whenever I got down, something was happening with me, and I needed to talk to somebody, I would call my father because he was so positive, and he was so uplifting. He was a person that just I loved, to talk to about his experiences and everything. And let me tell you, there was a time when the Nicholas brothers, it was hard for them to find work. And so what happened was you would think he would be bitter, but he was never bitter. In all my years, I never heard my father say anything negative about anyone. He wasn't negative about show business. He wasn't negative about Hollywood, even though they had treated him poorly in his later years. He was always upbeat, always, and always uplifting, and always talking to people. It was a good friend, Gregory Hines, that reached out and found my father, because let me tell you what happened. It got so bad that my father had to get a part-time job as a warehouse security agent to find work, because he couldn't find work. But Gregory Hines reached out to my father. At that time, Gregory was grooming young dancers like Savion Glover at that time. And so he reached out to my father and my uncle, and what he did was he was able to open up the venues for them at tap festivals and other events. And so the Nicholas brothers were reintroduced to the world. And of course, after what Gregory did, they were able to be asked, to go to different venues and to perform. And that was
when was
for
this?
that time. This was in the 70s.
70s.
It was in the 70s.
And where did they go? Who did they perform for?
Oh,
Some of the extraordinary.
yeah. For instance, shows like the Hollywood Palace. There were shows like Harold Burnett's show, and other shows on television and other venues, and so they were able to be reintroduced again. And as I said, and during that time too, there was a certain thing that happened during that time, and that is the tap festivals. Tap festivals started popping up everywhere in Washington, D.C., in Atlanta, in Chicago, in Detroit, Seattle, and even here in L.A. And so what happened was, in St. Louis, I can't forget St. Louis. But what happened was the Nicholas brothers were asked to come and perform. They were asked to not only perform, but to be there to give advice to the young dancers of that era that were coming up.
Did they travel abroad?
Yes, they did. They traveled abroad, and they were loved in France and in Paris. They traveled abroad, and also in South America. They were so loved in South America. So I guess what happened was the people found out that the Nicholas brothers were still around and still had plenty of energy and they want to come. So they started getting invited everywhere, and so this was great. Now, also too, it was happening during that time. There was an opportunity where the Nicholas brothers were going to be honored at Carnegie Hall in New York. And so they went to Carnegie Hall, and Savion Glover was there, Bill Cosby was there, Lena Horne was there, and so what happened was the Nicholas brothers performed, and Savion performed too. But what was great for me is that my two daughters, Nicole and Kathy, who are the Nicholas sisters, they had an opportunity to perform with their grandfather and their uncle at Carnegie Hall.
Nice.
And that was quite a treat. That was something that was really great. There's no
What
question
year
about
was that? Do you remember?
That was
Roughly.
about in the late 90s.
90s, okay.
In the late 90s, around 96, 97, something around that time, in the late 90s. And so, as I said, and the Nicholas sisters, had a chance to be a part of that, and the girls perform everywhere. They had a chance to go to all the tap festivals and travel the world too. We had a chance to go to Cuba and perform before Fidel Castro there in Cuba, and that was quite exciting. And so now my father went with us when we went to Cuba, and what was great is while we were there, there was a famous hotel, the Hotel Nacional. And in the Hotel Nacional, that the Nicholas brothers, they performed in Cuba, but they weren't able to stay at the hotel. And so what happened was when we went back to Cuba, our good friend Joe Perez went to the Hotel Nacional and to the manager, and he says, Farrah Nicholas of the Nicholas brothers is here with us, and we want you to apologize. And he said, oh my God, yes. So my father went to Hotel Nacional, and the manager there at the hotel said how he couldn't believe how the Nicholas brothers, even though they performed there at the hotel, were unable to stay there. But that happened to them quite often. But it was great that the manager there at the Hotel Nacional.
But in Cuba, I wouldn't have expected that, quite honestly.
You gotta remember, this is before Castro.
Yes, I understand.
That was before Castro.
Sure.
And of course, when Castro, became the head of Cuba, all the discrimination ended, and the doors were open for all nationalities and all people.
Sure.
But
So what was it like being a son of this famous dancer?
Oh my God. Well, the Nicholas brothers were treated like royalty. And I'll give you some examples about that. But what happened was, because they were treated like royalty, I was like a little prince. And so, coming up, I had a chance to be with the Nicholas brothers all in Europe. I traveled with the Nicholas brothers, and You know, we were in London, we were in Paris, you know, we went to Northern Africa, in Algiers, and Morocco. You know, we had a chance to, you know, in Rome. And so I had a chance to be with the Nicholas brothers, you know, as we traveled around the world. Now, I tell you a story. The Nicholas brothers were given a command performance before the King and Queen of England at that time, King George and Queen Elizabeth the First. What happened was Queen Elizabeth II, she was just Princess Elizabeth at that time. So they had a command performance. They wanted the Nicholas brothers to come and perform. And so what happened was, before we were able to perform, the royal family was in the where they were in the royal box. And so while we were there, Princess Elizabeth was having labor pains, and so she had to leave. She had to leave because she was having these pains. So she had to leave, and so they took her to the hospital, and the whole family left to go with her, and so except for one person, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth the First. She said, "I'm not leaving until I see the Nicholas brothers perform." And so that in 2 days, Prince Charles was born.
Interesting.
And so who is now the King of England.
Yes.
And so anyway, I've been waiting to meet the King.
Yes.
So if I ever get that chance, I was going to tell him that his grandmother didn't go to the hospital for his birth because she wanted to see me dance.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I certainly want to do that, but it shows that even in royalty, in English royalty, that how the Nicholas brothers, you know, were just loved. There's no question about it, and how they, you know, people wanted to see them and gravitated to them. But I'll tell you something. I have something on the Nicholas brothers.
Okay.
This is when I was about 5 years old. We were in Rome, and I was in the courtyard, and I was practicing my steps. And because the Nicholas brothers, they showed me a routine,
So they taught you.
They taught me,
Okay.
yes. And so what happened was, what they would do, they would come out and perform, but then after their performance, they would come get me for the finale, and I would dance with them.
Oh, nice.
And so the audience in Rome was just so taken with me, and they just, I'll never forget one time, after a performance, there was this walkway, and so my father had my hand. He was walking on the walkway, and this woman just ran up to the walkway. She said, "Bambino, bambino," and you know, it just lovely. So what happened was, I had something that the Nicholas brothers don't have. So I was in this courtyard, and so this priest came and talked to my mother. Next thing I know, we're in this limousine, and we're traveling to the Vatican. And so we go to the Vatican, and so I go in, and I was, as I said, I was about 5 years old when we were in the lobby. And so anyway, this priest comes out of this room, and he says, "Please," he says, come into this room. And I said, "Okay." So my mother and I walked into the room, and there was Pope Pius XII.
Oh my goodness.
And so the Pope says, he couldn't speak English, but he said it in Italian. He said, "I've been hearing about this child that's dancing all over Rome." And he says, "Will you dance for me?" And I said, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And so I got up there and I did my thing, and I'm dancing. I did flips and I did splits and everything. And then and so after my performance, the Pope put his hand on my head and gave me a special blessing.
Nice.
And I feel that I've been blessed all my life,
yes.
you know, as a result of that. You know, I've been blessed with my wonderful family, with my friends, and everything that I've done. You know, it's just I've had a wonderful, marvelous life, and so.
So could you talk about your life?
Okay.
So you were born in L.A.
I was born in L.A. Right after I was born, we went to Europe. I spent the first 5 years of my life in Europe. I tell you that right after I was born, you know, it was right after the war. My mother was in LA and she wanted to buy a home, and so what she did was she tried to buy a home on the west side of Los Angeles, and of course she was given the thumbs down every place she tried to go because. Black people just weren't able to, you know, buy homes in the west side of Los Angeles at that time. So my mother was so upset. What she did was she started looking for a home where the dividing line was here in Los Angeles. And the dividing line here in Los Angeles was on Arlington Avenue. And so she tried to buy a house on Arlington. There were no vacancies. The next street over was Van Ness. And so she bought a home on Van Ness. The family still owns it. As a matter of fact, my brother lives there at the house now.
Van Ness and what?
Van Ness in 36 in Van Ness, 36 in Van Ness. As a matter of fact, Rochester had a home right around the corner on a street called Cimarron.
Rochester.
And Rochester.
Okay.
I'll tell you
tell
about
me.
Rochester. But anyway, so my mother, she was so upset. She went to City Hall, and I was just born, and so I was in a baby buggy. And so what she would do is she would picket City Hall with me in the baby buggy, and we'd go back and forth in front of City Hall, and she had a sign that said, LA is unfair to Negroes. And we were Negroes at that time.
Yeah.
And so she would pick it, and a picture was on the front page of the newspaper at that time. And so she would do that, but my mother had always been an organizer and an activist and everything. She was a student of Paul Robeson's. Yeah, she studied under Paul Robeson's when she was just a young woman.
And she was from LA as well?
Yes, she was in.
She was born here.
No, she was. Excuse me.
No,
No, she
okay.
was born in Jackson, Tennessee. She was born in Jackson, Tennessee, and then she went to Louisiana in Louisiana, and she went to Xavier University in Louisiana. And
What
then,
did she study? Do you remember?
She just had a liberal arts.
Sure.
She had a liberal arts education, nothing in particular.
Yeah.
And then she left Xavier and went to Chicago, where she attended school at DePaul University in Chicago. That's where she met my father. She met my father in Chicago.
Oh, interesting.
But I'll tell you a story about Rochester. Rochester at that time, of course, was one of the most famous comedians at that time. He was Jack Benny's sidekick, and was in his films and later on in radio and on his TV show. Well, anyway, Rochester wanted to buy a home on the west side. And what happened was, again, he was turned down. Said, no, you can't live here. So what Rochester did was, he said, okay. So he bought property over here on Cimarron, which was a block away from where we lived. And he built a home that was the exact replica of Jack Benny's home. If you go there, you will see this home, the exact same replica of that home. He said, okay, you're not gonna let me, live on the west side? Okay, so I'm gonna build a home here.
And Cimarron is where?
It is Cimarron and again 36.
30. Okay.
36.
Okay, I see that.
36 and
Okay.
Cimarron. We were right around the corner.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, and the house is still there, and as I said, Rochester was there, and would Rochester would come over to our house. He would come around the corner. He'd come over to our house when we came back from Europe.
So your mother picketed a lot.
Yes, she did. She picketed a lot, and my mother was an activist throughout her whole life. Let me tell you, at that time, black people were unable to have events at hotels here in Los Angeles because of the discrimination. And so what my mother did was, she said, we're going to purchase some property where black people could come. And so what she did was she organized a lot of the black entertainers at that time, and they pooled together their money, and they bought a home here in Los Angeles on Adams and Fifth Avenue. And they called the club the Wilfendale Club. And so it's a beautiful home with a wonderful backyard. And so black people started having a place where they could have birthdays and weddings and anniversaries. And so my mother was the first president of the Wilfendale. And it's because of her activism that that home is still there. So you see, that's the kind of environment that I grew up in at that time. And my mother being an activist, and of course all the friends she made while she, my father was in the entertainment business, no question about it.
Is that home still there?
Yes.
Owned by the African American community?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And as a matter of fact, my wife and I, when we were married, we had our reception
nice.
at the Wilfendale Club, because we didn't want to go to a hotel or anything like that, so we had it at the Wilfendale. My granddaughter had her first birthday there at the Wilfendale Club. There's so much to talk about, but I just so I won't forget.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about my two daughters,
Wonderful.
Nicole and Kathy. They're known as the Nicholas sisters, and they started off.
Tap dancers. Tap dancers.
Tap dancers.
Okay.
Oh, of course. Tap dancers. Kathy Nicholas and Nicole Nicholas. When they were first born, I envisioned them becoming dancers. I had always had this in my mind. I didn't know I was going to have two girls, but I did, and I couldn't have been happier. The girls, when Nicole was 2 years old, I took her to her first dance studio, and I said, this is an opportunity for Nicole to learn how to dance, tap dance. And so took her to this one dance studio, and so Nicole learned the basics in tap. And of course, every tap dancer knows the importance of learning ballet. Ballet teaches you positioning, how to use your body, how to use your hands, how to use your feet. And so Nicole started in the very basics. But it's what happened was I wasn't satisfied with what Nicole was getting at that time. So I called my father. I said, Dad, I said, listen, I have these two daughters now, Kathy and Nicole. At that time, Nicole was 4, and Kathy was 2. I said, what do you recommend? What should I do? He said, son, there's only one place that you can take your kids, your 2 daughters, to learn how to dance, really learn how to dance. He said, you gotta take the girls to see Paul Kennedy and Arlene Kennedy. 2 great teachers, and had been around and had been training dancers for years and years. I was so happy we made that decision.
Were they African American?
Yes, they were both African American. So I took them to the dance studio, Universal Dance Design studio, and had a chance to meet Paul and Arlene. And so I said, I want to see what goes on at this studio. So I got there in the morning. Paul had a class with Nicole and Kathy, and I said, I want to see what happens. And so what happened was, I saw Paul work with each class. The young kids, 4 and 2, he worked with them, and then he got into the older kids, 8 to 10, and then all of a sudden, so I saw the transition. I saw them working with the older kids, and then he got to the teenagers, and I tell you, I went into the room and I saw him work with this group of teenagers, and it blew my mind. I said, "Whoa!" And so. He had young dancers there, but boy, could they perform? It was just unreal. And I said, oh my God! I said, I want the girls doing that. And so what happened was, Paul and Arlene, started working with the 2 girls, and I saw their transition. I saw them as they got older. I saw them perform more and more, and then even to the point where they were taught a Nicholas Brothers routine, a routine called Lucky Numbers. Is from a film called The Black Network, and this film is this routine is in that film, choreographed by Fayard Nicholas, and so they learned that, and that was their signature routine, and they performed that everywhere, and it was just so great to see them develop. Nicole and Kathy, as I said, they would travel all over the country, going to the different tap festivals. Went to Cuba, they went to Europe, went to Canada, and they performed. And they started getting a reputation of their own. People started requesting them to come to the different dance venues. As the girls got older, they finished high school, and Nicole went on to college. She went to Stanford University, and she excelled there at Stanford. But she would come down during the summers and come down in the winters, and she would perform with her sister. She would still do that. It would still be the Nicholas sisters, and so she performed with her sister, and all the time she was at Stanford. And then when she came home, Nicole was something. She started working with Debbie Allen. She was Debbie Allen's managing producer, and she worked with Debbie.
Who is Debbie Allen?
Debbie Allen is a famous entertainer. She was an actress, a singer. She directed. She directed like the TV show A Different World. She was the director for that show. She was the director for the Grey's Anatomy. And other films, and other films. But Debbie Allen is a very famous, individual who's completely involved in entertainment. She was married to Norm Nixon, who who played for the Los Angeles Lakers and has 2 world champion rings. And so they formed a team, and later Debbie started her own dance studio called the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, Dada, and so Nicole started working with Debbie as her managing producer, and Debbie would put on different shows. She put on a show called Brothers of the Night that was quality show, and she puts on every year. She puts on the Chocolate Nutcracker, which is an exceptional show, and so Nicole was there, but Kathy was there with Debbie, and so Kathy started working more and more with Debbie and became Debbie's assistant, and so. As Kathy grew older, she learned from Debbie, and she became Debbie's assistant. And later, Kathy left Debbie, and Kathy started her own dance studio. It's called the Nicholas Dance Studio, of course. And so Debbie, so Kathy has done so well with her dance studio. She has a waiting list only of students trying to enroll in her class, but what's happening is students and parents they know that Kathy is the granddaughter of Fair Nicholas, and they said, "Oh yeah, we want our kids dancing like that."
Yes.
So Kathy has excelled at her dance studio. But the girls are just phenomenal, and it's so great, to see the girls carrying on the legacy of the Nicholas brothers, and Nicole has started dancing more and more with Kathy now. As a matter of fact, at the Academy of Motion Pictures in their museum, the girls performed, did 2 performances there, and they got rave reviews while they were there, and then they did a show in the Academy Theater, and the great show. The show was on the history of the Nicholas brothers and history of tap, and then they did a performance afterwards, but they are called on to do different shows, but the girls are just phenomenal. They're doing really well. I love seeing them perform. There's no question about it. The great thing is, coming up when I was very, very young. Of course, we were in Europe, so I never saw. I was subjected to any kind of racism or discrimination while I was in Europe. As I said earlier. I was like a little prince. We were treated like royalty. It was just great being in Europe. When I came back home, my mother and father, unfortunately, didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and as a result of that, they got a divorce. And so. When they got a divorce, I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, because I had been with my father all of my childhood, and I didn't know what happened. So what happened? What happened was when I was 10 years old in 1955, my mother met this this civil rights attorney named Leo Branton, and Leo came into my mother's life and came into my life, and what happened was he certainly embraced the whole family, myself and my younger brother Paul, and he used to take me to all the football games. And I became a sports fan because he would take me to the Rams game. He would take me to the UCLA football games and basketball games. He would take me to all the sporting events, and believe me, I have become a sports fan ever since because of what Leo did coming up. And so eventually what happened was Leo asked my mother, to marry him. And so my mother, I'll never forget this, she came into the kitchen, brought me in the kitchen, and she sat me down, and she said, "Tony, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "What's happening?" And she said, "Leo has asked me to be his wife. How do you feel about that?" And I said, "Does that mean we can still go to the football games?" And she said, "Of course, of course." And so, they were married. Now Leo was such a phenomenal person. He was the first black attorney to deal in entertainment law here in Los Angeles. He had clients like Nat King Cole, which was his main client, Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, Miles Davis, Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor. These are all his clients. And so Leo, got quite a reputation about being such an outstanding lawyer at that time. Because what was happening is, prior to Leo, the black entertainers would always have Jewish lawyers. But Leo was an opportunity to have all these entertainers, to get a prominent black attorney to deal, with all the legal issues. And then what happened was Leo really did something that was phenomenal. While he was involved in entertainment law, he would work with members. He was solicited by the Communist Party to represent them in a Supreme Court case. And what happened was, in this Supreme Court case, the government was trying to have anyone who was connected with the Communist Party to register, and they had to register as a communist. And so the communists at that time and the entertainers who were involved at that time said, "We don't think that's right. We don't think we have to register any place." And she said, if we were a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or whatever, you're not asking them to register anything. And so they came to Leo, and he took up the case. He went to the Supreme Court and won. And so he won that case, and there was another case having to do with the communists. And so he took that case to the Supreme Court and won that case. And so what happened was, there was an activist later on after that time. Leo got so upset what was happening in this government. He decided to move to Mexico. So he left the country and moved to Mexico. And I had, and we'll get into it, but I had just come back from the service. I was in the U.S. Army, and when I came back from the service, I stayed at our home that we had on Wellington Road here in Los Angeles, and Leo moved to Mexico. Well, Angela Davis, who was a phenomenal activist at that time, was arrested. She was arrested, and the government had accused her of murder, because at that time she had weapons in her house, and then there was a young man named Jonathan Jackson, and he knew Angela, and he broke into Angela's house and took all her weapons, and he used those weapons in a breakout, a prison breakout, from a trial that was up in Marin County. Well, he was killed, and a number of other people were killed during this breakout. And so Angela was being accused of murder. They thought that she supplied the weapons, but she didn't. And so anyway, Leo took up the case. It was a famous case because Angela was public enemy number one. She was the most wanted individual at that time by the FBI. So Leo took the case. And so during the trial, Leo gave a closing argument that was phenomenal. They still rave about Leo's closing argument that he gave, and as a result of the closing argument in Angela's behalf, she was set free. And so, so it's all this is part of the legend during that time. It was truly amazing. And Angela, to this day, we went to an event, and Angela was there, and she saw Leo, and she ran up to him and hugged him.
Yes.
And she said, Leo, I can't thank you enough. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be free. So Leo, became, got away from entertainment and became a civil rights attorney. And so at that time there was an organization called SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And Leo was the head of LA chapter of SNCC. But he would, oftentimes the civil rights workers at that time, either from SNCC or CORE or SCLC, when they were arrested, they went to jail. Well, Leo would go down south and represent the civil rights workers and get them out of jail. And so he had quite a reputation. At that time, he met Rosa Parks, and of course he knew Dr. King, and I would go down south with him, and so I had a chance to meet meet Mrs. Parks and meet Dr. King, and as far as being involved in SNCC, and so at that time, Leo befriended Mrs. Parks, and Rosa Parks had to move from Montgomery, Alabama, because the threats on her life and what was happening to her at that time.
Yeah.
So she moved to Detroit, Michigan, and she worked in the office of Congressman John Conyers in Detroit, Michigan. So those winters in Detroit were brutal. So Leo said to Mrs. Parks, he said, it doesn't make any sense for you to be here in Detroit. You need to come to Los Angeles. So Mrs. Parks would come and stay at my parents' home, my mother and father's home, every year for the last 10 years of her life. And so I, of course, befriended Mrs. Parks, and I became her West Coast representative. I was able to take Mrs. Parks to different events here in Los Angeles, and other events here.
Would she give talks? What did she do when she was here?
What did she do?
What were the events that she was?
Well, there would be, for instance, there were events like the National Urban League, the NAACP.
So she would give
She was
talks.
invited to come there and to
Nice.
say a few words,
Wonderful.
and of course to be a guest
Sure.
at these events. I remember one time President Clinton came out here to Los Angeles, and he was staying at a hotel out here in Santa Monica, and so he said he wanted to see Mrs. Parks. He asked her, so he called over to the house our house on Wellington. So we went there. It was myself and Leo and my wife, and I think the kids went with us too.
Did your mother go?
Huh?
Your mother?
Mother didn't go.
No. Okay.
She didn't go.
Okay.
But Mrs. Parks and my mother became very good friends.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
yes,
they're
yeah.
very good friends.
Yes.
There's no question about it. As a matter of fact, I tell people, my mother was the best friend of Rosa Parks and Dorothy Dandridge. You know, during that time, and she was. So anyway, we went to this hotel,
Yeah.
and we had a chance to meet the president at that time, and that was great. That was extraordinary. I'll never forget that. But I tell you, my relationship with Mrs. Parks really was strengthened by the fact that Mrs. Parks was asked to come to Tokyo, Japan, by then the head of the Buddhists, Dr. Ikeda. And so I had a chance to take Mrs. Parks to Tokyo, Japan. My wife and I went, and we were escorted Mrs. Parks to Tokyo, and there was an event that happened in Tokyo I'll never forget. First of all, when we went to Tokyo, everything was first class. Everything, our flight, our hotel, everything, every place we went.
Who invited you?
Dr. Ikeda.
Okay. Doctor. Okay.
Dr. Ikeda.
Okay.
He invited us to come there, and so anyway, we were there in Tokyo, and Mrs. Parks was going to receive an honorary doctorate degree from Soko University, and so we got in a limousine and we went to Soko University, and we parked in the back of this beautiful auditorium. And so we were all in the car, and we got out the car, and we walked down this long hallway to the front of the auditorium, and the curtains were closed. But at the auditorium, on the stage, all the faculty were dressed in cap and gown, and they were able to. They were waiting to give Mrs. Parks this honorary doctorate degree. And so we were sitting there and waiting. We were waiting for the festivities to start. And all of a sudden, the curtains opened up. And when the curtains opened up, we looked out in the audience. There were 7,000 Japanese students sitting in the audience. And we couldn't believe it because they didn't make a sound. You know, I said, if we got 7 kids from the United States someplace,
Exactly.
they would be making noise and running around and everything.
Yeah.
But there was 7,000
Silence.
Japanese students sitting in the audience, and they all stood up and crossed their arms and started singing, "We Shall Overcome," in English. And I swear, I started crying. Mrs. Parks started crying. It was phenomenal. And so Mrs. Parks received her honorary doctorate degree. It was time to leave. And so what happened was we exited the building and went through the back door. And we got in the car and we started driving down the road to exit the grounds at the university, all 7,000 students had left the auditorium and they were along the road. And so as Mrs. Parks' car drove by, they would all bow. It was the reverence that they showed. They showed Mrs. Parks, and it was great. You know, and it shows how she was so well respected, you know, worldwide. Because she met kings and queens and presidents, and she was so well respected. You know, and we were so honored that you know, as I said, that the last 10 years of her life, she spent those days, you know, at my parents' home.
Wonderful.
That was something.
Amazing.
It was
amazing.
amazing.
Fantastic.
And I tell you a story. You know, we were all. The family was all went to my family's home, and I think I went over to see the game with my stepfather at that time, Leo, and we're all sitting there looking at the game, and so Nicole had asked Mrs. Parks to come to her school, and Mrs. Parks had gone to her school and took pictures.
What is Nicole? What year is this? How old was she?
She was in the first grade.
Okay.
So, so about 90, 91, 92.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, we were all over our house, in my parents' house, and so I got up to get a glass of water, and Nicole was in the kitchen, and Mrs. Parks was in the kitchen. So Nicole had to learn this poem, a civil rights poem, and in the poem, it's something about, yes, and Mrs. Parks didn't give up her seat, and there was a line in there.
Yes.
So I walked in to get a glass of water, and there was Mrs. Parks teaching my daughter this poem about Mrs. Parks and the civil rights movement. And it just struck me. I said, my God. I said, my God. Because, the girls, they would call Mrs. Parks Auntie Rosa. You know, she was like a grandmother, an auntie or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was just really phenomenal to see how close our family had come, and to be honored to be able to spend that time with Mrs. Parks. And I'm talking about Mrs. Parks was so humble. You know, even though she was so loved by so many people throughout the world, she was so humble. And she took on all situations and all circumstances, and you never would believe that she was the icon that she was, but she was so loved by everyone. There's no question about it. Yeah,
amazing.
It's true.
Amazing.
Yeah, that experience, like I said. I've had so many experiences, like I said, with Leo, with my father, Fayard, meeting absolutely everybody in show business, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Ethel Waters, just the list goes, Lena Horne, just the list goes on and on and on. And then getting with, and then with Leo. And Leo, and meeting Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Jim Farmer, Jim Foreman, and just all the movers and shakers at that time. Andy Young, all these, great civil rights activists and leaders at that time. So, I had the best of both worlds, meeting Angela Davis, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Meeting all these people. So I had, having an opportunity of meeting people within the entertainment world and also people within the civil rights world. And, and to have all these individuals, in my life and in my family's life, just an outstanding and rewarding experience. There's no question about it.
Wonderful.
But anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then let's talk a little bit about your father and
Okay.
how he became a Baha'i. So he became a member of the Baha'i faith.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me. my father. This is something I never, growing up with him, I never knew him to be a religious person. My mother was a devout Catholic. She would go to Mass from time to time, took me to Mass, put me in Catholic school. I went to not only Catholic elementary school, but I went Catholic high school. I went to 12 years of Catholicism and went through that. And what happened was, it was after my mother and father divorced that I knew that my father, and at that time his wife was Barbara January. She was a model and an actress, and so he met Barbara January, and they got married. But what happened was, when they got together, my father said to me that he wanted something more in life. That there was something missing that he couldn't put his hands on. And so what happened was, he was introduced in the Baha'i faith at that time, where he was looking for something.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. And so as a result of that, he embraced the Baha'i faith. He was a big supporter of the Baha'i faith here in Los Angeles, as Barbara was. Barbara was a Baha'i, and so with the both of them, they would go to the Baha'i Center here in Los Angeles, and they would perform. They would talk to the young people, encourage the young people. He talked about the importance of being a Baha'i and living up to the faith. And so I saw something in my father as a result of that. I told you that he was always upbeat. He was always a person that would never say anything negative about anybody. But there was something, there was an additional transition that happened there. And I attribute it to the fact that the teachings and what he was able to be exposed to with the Baha'i faith. So my father, as I said, that is something that he will always have, and I know this about him, that he would always cherish that he became a Baha'i, and what it meant to him. He and Barbara, and then later, after Barbara passed away, he married Catherine Hopkins Nicholas, and Catherine also embraced the Baha'i faith, and so I'm pleased that my father, as he grew older, this is something that he always would cherish, and I just know this about him. And that was all attributed to the Baha'i faith.
Very good,
Really.
thank you. So you mentioned that you've done many things with veterans, and I would like to hear more about that.
Yes. Well, I was in the U.S. Army. I was a Vietnam era veteran. I didn't go to Vietnam, but I was in the service during that time there in the Vietnam War, from 1966 to '68. When I was released from the service, I started an organization called the Veterans Counseling Center. And the Veterans Counseling Center, what we did was we would help veterans with the GI Bill. We would help them get into school, we helped them get jobs, we would help them with the the problems, any health problems, any mental problems that they had. And so I was working as the head of the Veterans Counseling Center, and as a result of that, Tom Bradley, who was then the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, decided that he wanted to have a Veterans Commission, a Vietnam Veterans Commission. So Tom Bradley appointed me as the new president of the Veterans Commission for the city of Los Angeles. And as a work that what I did for vets in the city, I also went back to Washington, D.C., where I testified before the Senate subcommittee under Alan Cranston. And as a result of my testimony, I was able to get $1 million that I brought back to the city of LA for veterans employment. Because of that particular event and other things that I did for veterans, Jimmy Carter, who was the president at that time, awarded me the Presidential Citation for my work with Veterans Affairs.
Wonderful.
Something that I feel so pleased about and so honored about.
Fantastic.
But I received over 36 awards for community service that I've received from the city of LA, the county of LA, the state of California, and from the federal government.
Wow.
I received over 36 awards, and that is something that I'm very, very proud
That's
of.
very, very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But anyway, I wanted to talk about my aunt and uncle. I certainly think that this documentary should include them. My Uncle Harold married the beautiful, beautiful and talented Dorothy Dandridge, and they were married, and she was Aunt Dorothy. My mother and Dorothy became best friends, and what happened was, not too long after they were married, they had a daughter, Carolyn, called her Lynn. But unfortunately, Lynn was born with a terrible, terrible problem. She had a mental disorder, and she unfortunately, as she grew up, she had the brain of a 3-year-old. She couldn't talk. She couldn't reason. Couldn't do anything. And Dorothy never could believe that she could have a child that was imperfect. So one of the things that was brought out before Lynn was born, Harold's first love, I gotta be honest about this, Harold's first love was golf. He loved golf, and he was good. And so what happened was, when Dorothy was pregnant, Harold was at the golf course, playing golf. And so Dorothy went into labor. She called my mother. My mother went over to the house, and my mother, being the organizer that she is, Fayard was out. He had the car, the family car, but Harold had their car. He was at the golf course. So my mother wanted to get Dorothy to the hospital, and so she had no way of getting there. So what she did was she went to her neighbor's house and she pounded on the door. She said, "Listen, it's an emergency, emergency! I need your car." And the neighbor gave the keys to my mother. So my mother drove Dorothy to the hospital, and so she was there with Dorothy, and Dorothy was holding back in the birth of Lynn, and so what happened was, people are saying that could have attributed to the fact that Lynn, it was having the problems that she had. But eventually, they caught Harold, and so he got to the hospital, and of course he was so apologetic, and he was so sorrowful because of the fact that he was not there for the birth of his daughter. But my mother was there. She was there, and Lynn was born. She was 1 year older. She was 1 year older than myself, and so I was like I said, I was born the year afterwards. But Dorothy Dandridge, the first African American woman to be nominated for Best Actress in a movie. She was nominated for her role, excuse me, her role in Carmen Jones, which was a great film, and Dorothy was in that film, and she did such a phenomenal job.
That was not with Harry Belafonte. That was the Broadway version of it, I think.
No, oh no,
No,
it was a musical.
Yes,
Yes,
I know.
but there was a Broadway musical, but Dorothy. Otto Preminger, who was the producer of the film, decided that he was going to have Dorothy as the lead. I tell you how she got that. Dorothy, when she first went in to audition for the film, she went in dressed in a business suit and everything, and Dorothy said, "You're beautiful and everything, but I don't know if you're right for Carmen." So what Dorothy did was she went and got a skirt and a blouse with an orchid in it, and came in and then walked in the next day, and she was Carmen. She was definitely Carmen, and Otto just was, was floored by her, and so because of that, because she took the initiative to do that, Otto Preminger put her in the cast as Carmen Jones.
Very good.
Dorothy and my mother were the best of friends. As a matter of fact, there was a movie that was put out called Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. Halle Berry is the star in that film. But what's so great about the film, the first part of the film is on the Nicholas brothers.
Oh.
The first part of the film is about the Nicholas brothers and the relationship that Harold and Dorothy had at that time. So if you got to see the Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. It's a great film. Halle Berry did a good job, but as my mother would say, Halle Berry's beautiful, but she ain't no Dorothy Dandridge.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes?
Well, Halle went on to win for that movie.
Yeah, Halle won the Emmy Award for Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. She won the award, and as a matter of fact, on the night that Halle received her award, she got before the audience, and she one of the first things she did was she thanked my mother. She said, "I want to thank Jerry Branton, for inspiring me and all the information she gave me," and so she was so thankful that she won the Emmy Award for that, because it was a film made for television. She wasn't eligible to receive an Oscar, but she did receive the Emmy Award.
Wonderful.
And quick story while we have some time. I went over to my mother's house, and visit her, and so anyway, I walked into the house, and there my mother was sitting, but on the couch, with her legs up on the couch and a halter top and shorts on, was Halle Berry. And so what Halle Berry does, when she's in a film, she gets into the role that she's playing. So anyway, she looked at me and she jumped up and she says, "Is that my nephew Tony?" And I said, "Uh-huh." And I ran over there, and so she gave me a hug, and I said, "Shoot." And so I gave her a hug, and I hugged her, and so my mother said, "Tony, let her go." And I looked at my mother. I said, "Do I have to?" Yeah.
What a great actress.
Yeah, but it was great. But Halle, but as my mother said, it's just Halle is beautiful, but she ain't no Dorothy Dandridge.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the younger generation of African Americans?
Yes, there is something that we are living now in some very troubling times. I must be honest.
Absolutely.
There is, and I hate to say this, and I hate to do this, but I am very concerned about the mood of the country. We have an individual that I think that is such a detriment to the whole philosophy and what America is all about, and what kind of message he's going to be sending to young people. And that is Donald J. Trump. He is without a doubt a disgrace. He is someone that I think that through his hatred and what he has done in his presidency and since he's left office, that is such a detriment to young people and the future of young people. My message to young people is, listen, live out your dreams. Don't be frustrated. Don't, give in to, the charlatans that are out here. But, live out your dreams. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. And true enough, there are those that are trying to tear down this whole philosophy. But live your dreams. Stay in school. Get involved with your community. Join a church. Join a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout organization. Join a youth group. Get involved with the nonprofits that are positive. Get involved in your community. Be an activist, and don't let some of the things that you hear in the news and some of the things that are happening. Don't let that discourage you. But be the best you can be, and so this is if I have any kind of message for young people, I would say, just keep the faith, and just be active, get active,
Wonderful.
and get into the community.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself?
Oh, about myself?
Yes.
Well, I've been happily married for 40 years. I have a wonderful and beautiful wife that I'm so pleased that I'm just so happy that we're married. I have these wonderful children, 3 great children that I'm so proud of, and I have 5 grandchildren. And they are the joy of my life. So if I have anything to say at all, it's just that I just feel that I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Wonderful.
I really do.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
I've enjoyed this afternoon immensely.
Thank you.
There is, my life is so involved. I've had so many different wonderful experiences. It would take too much of your time for me to go through everything, but I appreciate the time that we have spent together. One thing I would like to say, I've written a book. The book is called My Travels Around the World.
Oh, nice.
With the Nicholas Brothers. It's a children's book. So it's a way of me trying to give back to the community and give back to children to know about my experiences as a young person and having a great opportunity of growing up as a Nicholas and growing up with the Nicholas Brothers and some of those adventures and some of the people I've met. So I'm gonna let you get a copy of the book. Okay.
Oh, that's fantastic, though. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
And I didn't ask about your schooling, or it didn't come up. Would you like to say anything about that?
Well, as I said, I had 12 years of Catholic
Yes.
school. After Catholic school, I went to where my wife taught school.
Yes.
She wasn't there. She had long
Yes,
gone.
yes, yes.
At Los Angeles City College, I
Wonderful.
went there. I got drafted, went into the military. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I didn't go to Vietnam, thank God, but I was in the service during that time. While I was in the service, I had an opportunity to finish up my schooling. I had that opportunity that was being offered to personnel in the service at that time. When I came home, I had a chance to go to Antioch College, where I got my master's degree in education. That's something that I'll always cherish. And with that kind of background, I was able to work and start a program called the Veterans Counseling Center, where I helped and assisted veterans when they came home from the service. I helped and assisted them get into schools and colleges and universities. As an educational, getting the degree in education gave me the opportunity of learning all there was to know about education, and I became an associate member of the College Entrance Examination Board, where I learned all there is to know about education, filling out the financial aid forms and college applications and counseling students about their career and what their major should be and everything. So I had that great opportunity, and along with the other things, I worked for the city of Los Angeles for 17 years and running a program called the Tom Bradley Youth and Family Center. And so that was something that I really enjoyed doing, working with young people and working with families and helping them to get out of their work towards getting out of the degree of frustration that they had and get out of the problems of poverty and homelessness and so that's another thing that I really cherish. So I've done a couple of things in my life.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Giving back so much.
But my greatest joy, I must say, with all these things that I've done, is my family, with my wife and my kids and my grandchildren. They are my greatest joy, and it's something that I always love and appreciate. It's something. Yeah, it really is.
It's wonderful.
And I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
I really
you
do.
very much.
It's been a
Thank
joy.
you.
It's been
Thank
a joy.
you so much. No, these are
and,
extremely important, these
yeah,
stories.
and you made me think about things and to talk about things.
Sure.
Yeah,
Good.
and I'm sure, and Vanita, she'll tell you I talk too much.
No, not at all. You know, just to tell you what I've taken back from these, what I've learned from these interviews, is how much your generation gave back.
Yes.
Just unrelenting. You never stop.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and you're absolutely correct. And the great thing is because when I was coming up, I surrounded myself with people that that wanted to give back to the community, always giving back.
Constant.
No, just weren't out there asking and trying to take or anything like that, but always trying to give back.
Yeah.
And what is happening in politics now, it's all about taking and taking and never giving back.
Yeah.
But
No,
but you're right.
Very
My
impressive.
generation always trying to give back.
Wonderful.
Always trying to give back.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Pleasure.